Hello again, football fans. This is Anthony once again with Two Fat Guys Fantasy Football. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Panthers in our ongoing offseason breakdown series. So first off, let's jump right into where the roster was at the end of the season. Obviously, the Panthers weren't great last year. They had a lot of question marks at quarterback. As well as honestly kind of across the board. And I don't think it was all their fault. Matt Rule was the head coach, and it became very obvious during his tenure that he was not cut out for the NFL coaching life. He made series after series of poor decisions, and I think it ended up costing him. Um, Swapped into their defensive coordinator, took over as the head coach, uh, and they honestly started playing quite a bit better. So here's where the roster was at the end of the season. Honestly, they have quite a few good pieces. Deontay Foreman really performed admirably after the trade of Christian McCaffrey. In 8 games, he put up over 900 rushing yards. DJ Moore is a true superstar receiver in this league. He can do anything that you ask of him. We loved the draft pick of Ike Ekwonu last year. Great cornerstone piece, left tackle, and did really well for a rookie. He came in and kind of saw him get better kind of across the board over the course of the season. The rest of the offensive line, you've got some nice pieces. Taylor Moton is a nice piece there. Tight end, Tommy Trimmel, we'll see how he continues to develop, but we liked his potential coming in. The rest of the receivers, Laviska Shenault has been kind of criminally underutilized in his NFL career. I really liked him coming out of college, but he just never seems to catch on and do well anywhere. I don't know if it's scheme. I don't know if there's something that in him that I didn't see, but he's really been kind of a disappointment. And same can be true for Terrace Marshall. Terrace Marshall was kind of the next guy in line um, after Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase to come out of that LSU wide receiver factory. No reason kind of to think that he couldn't have the same kind of impact, but unfortunately, it's just never materialized for him. On defense, of course, the big cornerstone piece here is, of course, Brian Burns. Brian Burns is an elite pass rusher. He's an all-around good defensive end. He's good against the run, sets the edge well, but he's an elite pass rusher. The rest of their offensive line, anchored by Derek Brown. Kid's a stud. He's going to keep getting better, but he has shown signs of being that dominant interior force that he was expected to be when he was drafted. On the outside, we've got speed for days at corner. Dante Jackson is one of the fastest corners in the league. J.C. Horn is also incredibly fast. Also continued to take the next step forward. And then bringing in C.J. Henderson, who earlier in his career would have been considered by many to be a disappointment. But he came into Carolina and really did well. He did well. He kind of revitalized his career a little bit. Jeremy Chin, excellent kind of sub linebacker, strong safety in the box kind of guy. Very good in coverage. He does a lot of things well. And then of course there's Shaq Thompson. So we've got a lot of talent on this team, but they did kind of underperform through the course of last year. And like I said, I think a lot of that was due to kind of the questions at quarterback. Darnold wasn't the guy. Baker wasn't the guy. PJ Walker, he did okay, but wasn't the guy. Matt Corral, not the guy. They just there's nobody there. There's no answers there, which is of course why they made the trade that they did with the Chicago Bears to move up to the number one overall draft pick. So let's take a look at the roster as it sits currently. The Panthers have been very, very active in free agency, and they've done a lot of things to help surround their new quarterback with the tools that he will need to succeed. Now, One of their first signings was to go out and bring in the Red Rifle here in Andy Dalton. I don't know how much Dalton has left in the tank. He didn't really impress me all that much last year with the Saints. Um, I, I don't know. Um, if he's going to be the starter and they're going to let the rookie season behind him, I don't expect the results to be much better this year. They let Deontay Foreman go in free agency. They didn't attempt to re-sign him, and instead they replaced him with Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders was an incredibly productive back, both in college and with the Eagles. He doesn't typically bring a whole lot in the receiving game, but as a between the tackles, just kind of runner, he is a good runner of the football. He followed in right after Saquon Barkley at Penn State, and again he has some very similar qualities, maybe albeit not quite to the level of talent that Saquon was. Still have Chuba Hubbard here. Chuba Hubbard is definitely kind of a third down back role for this team. I like him as a player. He's not going to be a wow kind of guy, but he is going to be kind of a solid kind of guy. And they completely had to revamp their wide receiver core. Part of that trade with the Bears was to ship DJ Moore to Chicago, so their receivers would have been Laviska Shenault, Terrace Marshall, Preston Williams, Shy Smith. So not ideal. So in the last several days, they brought in DJ Chark and Adam Thielen to help shore that up. Uh, I really like the addition of Thielen. Thielen is going to be, a, I mean, he doesn't drop the ball. He is a very good possession receiver. Doesn't bring a whole lot in the speed department, but he is an excellent route runner, and he is always where you need him to be to make the right play. He won't get much after, but he gets the play that he's designed to get. And that's great. He's a slot receiver. He's definitely not the number one receiver. He's not an outside receiver in any system anymore. DJ Chark is going to be that true X receiver. Um, his question has always been health. The potential is there. He is a 6'4", 200-pound speed demon. He is got a unique blend of talent, and I think if he can stay healthy and put together, a couple nice seasons with somebody, we could be talking about him for several years yet to come. Because I mean, he's still only 25. Uh, Leaves a lot of questions. I don't know what they're going to do with Laviska Shenault. Adam Thielen is just he does everything that Shenault does, just slightly better. Chenault might be slightly faster. He's definitely younger, has room for improvement, but um, I think he's kind of a redundancy in this offense. Terrace Marshall might still be the guy. I don't know, but I think Preston Williams is probably going to be that other guy. Again, 6'4", 200 pounds. He's got a nice blend of athleticism. He's a big guy. He's a jump ball guy. Uh, he's just a good kind of overall receiver. Was kind of underutilized there in Miami and became expendable once Tariq Hill and Jalen Waddle took over there. No changes to their offensive line. Their offensive line continues to be intact. Um, like I said, we talked a little bit about Ekwonu. Ekwonu came in and was essentially a pro-ready left tackle, and that's what you want. He's a cornerstone piece. Um, he's going to be there for as long as the Panthers can continue to pay him. Christensen is okay in terms of your left guard. Again, Bradley Bozeman, he's okay. I mean, there are definitely worse centers and worse interiors than this. Austin Corbett brings in a nice blend of youth and athleticism to sit next to Tyler Moton. So they do have a fairly good offensive line to put in front of their quarterback. Again, I'm not sure if it's going to be Andy Dalton. I don't think that it is. I think their plan is to start their rookie quarterback right away on day one. But there are some conflicting reports that I'm hearing coming out of Carolina that lead me to think that Dalton may end up being the guy. At the tight end spot, we brought in Hayden Hurst. Um, This guy is definitely a split out kind of tight end. He's got a unique athletic skill set. Um, Only been in the league for 4 years, but he is 29. He was one of the oldest players to be drafted in his draft class. He kind of was one of those guys. There are people that do go to college for 7 years. We call them doctors, kind of a guy. But he's had a productive NFL career. Um, it, he's not going to blow you away, but he's productive. We still have Tommy Tremble. I still like Tommy Tremble. I think he can absolutely continue to get better, and if he continues to take the next step, I expect him to potentially take over that job. The best thing about adding Hayden Hurst to this room is that I no longer have to hear anything about Ian Thomas as a tight end in the NFL anymore. He's going to be relegated to kind of total backup duty. On defense, again, a few things have changed. We did lose Matt Ioannidis to free agency. Henry Anderson is a kind of a capable fill-in. Is he going to bring everything that Ioannidis did? No, but he's at least a very good stopgap kind of guy. Derek Brown, of course, is still the anchor on the interior. Only 24 years old, but has proven to be worth uh, his draft capital investment. He is going to be good for a very long time. I do like their pass rush combo. Again, like I said, Brian Burns is elite. There's nothing more to be said about that. And Yetur Gross Matos really started to turn the corner over the course of last year and became the pass rusher across from Brian Burns that they needed. He's also, again, a kind of a complete end. He plays the run very well. He doesn't over pursue. He is going to continue to get better. I expect to see a nice jump from him in his year 2 to year 3 season. Linebacker, we still have Frankie Louvu, we still have Shaq Thompson, but that's kind of it. Barno is definitely a rush end. He's not going to be a coverage linebacker. I don't know what the solution is going to be for them at middle linebacker. I think they probably invest some draft capital in that at some point. At the safety position, we brought in Von Bell to play alongside Jeremy Chin. Um, Both Bell and Chin are strong safety types. I'm not sure how well their styles are going to mix. They're very similar type players, but I think that they'll figure it out. They're both good enough to come up with something. And then of course Xavier Woods is the third piece of that equation, so he'll play in those big nickel situations. Of course, the cornerbacks are, our top three are still our top three. Dante Jackson, J.C. Horn, C.J. Henderson. It's a secondary group. It's a cornerback group that I would put up to be, if they can continue to improve even just a little bit over the course of the year, I think it's one of the overall kind of top to bottom best cornerback groups in the league. So that's kind of a look there. Special teams, Johnny Hecker, Eddie Pinheiro, nothing really to speak of. They're both just good enough to get the job done. So let's talk a little bit more about what the Panthers' plans are going to be in the draft. Obviously, you don't make a trade from 9-1 and give up all the assets that the Panthers gave up to not take a quarterback. So we know they're taking a quarterback. Um, of course, I mean there's been smoke about them trying to move back in the draft. It's lying season, people. This is You don't move to one to try to move back. Um, Unless they can convince the Texans that they want Bryce Young, and I don't think they do. I haven't heard anything about them being linked to Bryce Young at all. Um, there's two names that I've heard being discussed, and those two names are C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson. Um, Personally, C.J. Stroud is my QB1 in this class. I think you take him, and then you just have your starting quarterback for the next decade. Anthony Richardson, I absolutely see a little bit as a project. I mean, again, his athleticism is off the charts, but he has some questionable attributes. His footwork isn't always great. He's ideal, his sense of pressure. He kind of gets a little bit of jumpy, and when he gets jumpy, his accuracy is not the best either. He was plagued by some of his receivers, with drops as well, so that hurts his completion percentage a little bit, but the accuracy isn't exactly where it needs to be a day one starter. So if they are as enamored with Anthony Richardson as a couple of people I've talked to say they are, and he ends up being the guy, I expect to see Andy Dalton under center to start the season. But they still have some questions at other spots. I mean, they gave up a lot to get that first pick, so they're not going to have as much capital to address the other things. I think that's why they've been as active in free agency as they have been. But middle linebacker is kind of that question mark. And middle linebacker is a position in the NFL that is undervalued, and kind of the value on it is pushed down in the draft. There's just not a high importance put on it. There are too many other positions. So I think you could get lucky and get some of these guys to get moved down, and you could get some really really good value here. In this draft class, I think they have the number one middle linebacker labeled incorrectly, and that is Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell is a middle linebacker prospect. He is my number one middle linebacker in the draft. Let's actually just take a look at his stats real quick and compare him with some of the other guys at middle linebackers. So Jack Campbell, he comes out of Iowa. Iowa is a defensive. Uh, I mean, it's just a defensive factory. You get defensive players and tight ends out of Iowa all the time. So Jack Campbell tested really, really well. He's plenty fast for the position, but his coverage skills are very, very good. He's one of the best tacklers I've seen come out of college in a long time. He's very, very good. But his coverage skills, like he is an incredible drop zone corner. He's going to be a great Mike defender in the NFL. That's what he's kind of bred for. 6'5", 250. Um, he's a prototypical middle linebacker, and I think you take him and don't look back if you're looking for middle linebacker. Another guy that I like a lot more than a lot of other people have, uh, Henry Oto'o. Um, the biggest reason I like him is his coaching in college. He has a unique, he's a little small, but he is coached very well. He's a good tackler. He's always in the right spots. He kind of does everything well, but he's not great at any one thing. The other name that I'm looking to keep an eye on is Noah Sewell. Noah Sewell out of Oregon is another guy who um, I think is going to go higher than a lot of people expect. He's only 21, very fast, very good tackler, very good in coverage. He kind of does again everything well, and that's what you're wanting in a Mike linebacker. He could come in and be the captain of that group right away. He reads the field well. Again, he's a guy that if you pick him, I think you're going to be very very happy with that selection. So middle linebacker is definitely a position that I think they could look at. Um, and honestly, that's really the biggest position of need that they have. They've done a really good job of making it so that they're going to walk into the draft without having to address need. They'll be able to take the best player available at the positions when they're on the clock. So that's kind of where I see them. Other than that first overall pick, which I think is going to be one of C.J. Stroud or Anthony Richardson. Um, like I said, I'm hearing that they like both of them a lot. I'm hearing that there's a lot of voices, kind of more voices saying Anthony Richardson, but the more important voices are saying Stroud. So it'll be interesting to see how that discussion ends up playing out as the rest of this pre-draft process commences. I think we'll get a lot more clarity on it once we see Anthony Richardson's pro day. which, as I'm recording this, is just in a couple days. So that's just a quick look at the Panthers offseason here. Like I said, they've done a really good job. I give them a good solid, um, I guess probably overall kind of a C plus, just because I think they gave up too much in their trade with the Bears. But that's the breakdown for the Panthers. We're going to get into the next set of teams here very soon. Again, the goal is to get through every single team before we get to the NFL draft. Once the draft hits and teams are more set and we kind of get the free agency period after that, I'll jump back into these, kind of revisit the teams, and we'll talk about some fantasy projections on some guys for the upcoming season. But as always, I appreciate every single one of you. Feel free to comment with your thoughts, suggestions, feedback. I'm open to everything. But until next time, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.